Hey Kinjal, let's take a look at this new set of essays that you have written. The first one is about the rainfall. It's really helpful if you can actually include the diagram as well. This way I can refer to it when I make my corrections and tell you things that you might have missed or other ways you could express certain things. Okay, so just remember, if you can just copy and paste the image into the email, that would be very helpful. All right, let's see what you said here. The line chart. It's actually not a line chart. We call them line graphs, pie charts, bar charts. Okay? So the line graph illustrates with an S alternations S in England, Scotland, and Wales in rainfall in over 12-month period. Okay, grammatically this has a lot of problems. All right, so this is not a very natural sentence. In England, in rainfall, in over 12-month period. We wouldn't say it like that. So what you could have said here instead is that the line graph illustrates the variation in rainfall over a 12-month period in England, Scotland, and Wales in 2018. Okay? Overall, rainfall in all the countries, plural, fluctuated throughout the period. Okay, I think you could have maybe said a little bit more than that. Rather than just fluctuating, maybe you could have said which the country that had the least fluctuation, which is England. You could have said, I think, a little more about this. All right, now let's look at the rest of the answer. In England, this is grammatically a problem. Let's see, not started rainfall. So in England, rainfall in January was recorded at over 110 ml. Not the most popular. It's not something that is liked or unliked, but it's just the heaviest rainfall. So the heavy or the most rainfall was in July at 130 ml, while in June the least amount of rain was recorded at about 70 ml. In contrast, at the end of the period in December, there was almost the same amount of rainfall as in July. Okay, so for England, you've given us essentially 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of data. Okay, I'm just going to mention that and just tuck it in the back of my head. The figure for Scotland's '(S) rainfall was initially almost as high as that of Wales, below 50 ml in January, whereas it declined drastically to around 20 ml in February as it reached approximately, what does that mean, as it reached? So grammatically this is a problem as well. It doesn't make sense. You could have said while it reached approximately 110 in the last month. So what are you telling us about Scotland? You're telling us 1, 2, 3 pieces of data here. Rainfall in Wales, saw a considerable growth and experienced the highest rain in July. What's the data here? Well, it reached the lowest point of just under 50 ml between August and, because you're saying between, so between August and October, before reaching a lower point of around just over, that doesn't make sense. Hold on. Lowest point, not lower than here. You want to say another low point of just over 50 ml in the end of the period. All right. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So let's see. You had about 4 pieces of information for England. You had about 3 pieces of information. So on average, you had about 4 pieces of information. I'm just trying to see if it's underdeveloped or if you don't have enough data. It's not a ton of data, but it's also not like, it's not zero data. So what the really important thing here, I think, to talk about is always the very beginning, the very end, and then any of those highs and lows. Like I said, you didn't include the chart here, the graph. So if you had, I would have told you, you know, definitely talk about January in the beginning of the year, talk about December at the end of the year, and then any of those really important highs and lows. Okay. So those are the, and I don't know how many pieces of data that comes out to for each area, but that's the kind of data I would have liked to see. Your grammar was really problematic in a lot of places. There were a couple places where it made the writing incoherent, so please be careful with that. Take a look at the model that you'll receive for how to write this, okay? Now let's take a look at your task 2. Today, most people get married and give birth in their 30s. Okay, positive or negative development. Let's see what you said. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated whether the growth of individual or the family associated with an individual. I don't understand that sentence. Some believe to marry and family planning after the age of 30. Personally, I strongly agree. This essay will argue that advancement in technology has already influenced the lifestyle of people, using examples from UK government and Oxford University to demonstrate points and prove arguments. Okay, reading this, I don't know what the essay is about. It's partially because of your grammar. All right, so let's see if we can look at it again. Experts throughout both the developing and developed world have debated, look at this, whether the growth of individual, I don't know what that means. How is that related to the topic? And then you say, or the family associated with an individual. So do you mean this to be a rephrasing of this? Because if you do, I don't understand it. Some believe it is best to marry and have a family after the age of 30. Personally, comma, I strongly agree, full stop. This essay will argue that the advancement of technology has already influenced the lifestyle of people using, I'm not really sure I understand that. Again, I told you, for me, this paragraph has a lot of problems, starting with those first 2 sentences. So let's just move on and see what you wrote for your body paragraphs. Firstly, there is ample evidence. I believe that one should be mature enough to take responsibility and spend life happily with soulmate. In my opinion, this level of mutual understanding, maturity, and sense of responsibility is being reached by one at the age of 30. For example, recent empirical research by the UK government demonstrated that 90% of such couple who got divorces because we're not mutually understandable towards each other. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that one's careful and sensible attitude, bigger factor of getting married. Okay. The grammar is a problem here again. Let's see. So this sentence didn't make sense. I understand that you're trying to apply the template, but it didn't work for you here. So what you want to say is something different. What you want to say is something along the lines of, firstly, there's ample evidence that people are happier with their soulmate when they are mature enough to make the decision to get married. I think this is more along the lines of what you want to say. In my opinion, this level of mutual understanding, maturity, and sense of responsibility can be achieved by one after the age of 30. I don't really like at the age of 30. It's as if all of a sudden like a light switch goes on and at 30 you're ready to do all this stuff. So I would change that a little bit. All right, for example, recent empirical research by the UK government demonstrated that 90% of such couples, now that doesn't make sense because such couples is as if you're talking about these people who got married at the age of 30, but that's not what you mean, because supposedly these people were mature. So I think you mean something else here. So demonstrated that 90% of couples who got divorced was because they, okay, not there, were, without the apostrophe, not, how can we fix this? This is awkward. It doesn't work. They did not understand each other, or they lacked the maturity to cohabitate or something like that. Therefore, it is conclusively clear that one's careful and sensible attitude is a bigger factor in getting married. Okay, so also the progression of ideas is really problematic here. You can see that I've spent a decent amount of time trying to fix the paragraph. If someone were to read this sentence, they would say, well, why do you have to be over 30? Have you proved it? So there's just a lot of problems, partially grammatical, partially in terms of your task achievement. You really needed to give more to me with regard to why you should be over 30 to get married, okay? It's just not supported enough. All right, lastly, I think that consistency and stability in career plays an important role in one's married life. If people's career is stable and the couple is progressing well financially without the "in," then they can provide their children a better life, better opportunities, and the best education. Moreover, such parents give valuable time to their children, which is the most important factor for their children's mental growth. Mature parents can teach moral values to their children in a practical way. For example, an extensive study by Oxford University showed that over 60% of such parents... What such parents? No. Again, when you say such parents, it's as if you're referring to these mature parents, but your example shows exactly the opposite. So your example is talking about parents who aren't mature and aren't over 30. So it's the wrong example. Let's see. Failed to teach moral values, S, to their children due to their struggling period of jobs which made their children brat. Now, this is absolutely inappropriate in this essay. It's informal. It's not the kind of language you want to use in an IELTS essay. Made their children spoiled, made their children unruly. So these are words you could have used, but certainly not brat. And anyway, it's the wrong argument because you're talking about why people should get married and have children over 30, but your examples are showing the exact opposite. You're showing what happens when young, immature people get married and have children, which is not what we're talking about. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that marriage and having children is the best decision of one's life. Okay, that wasn't what was discussed in this essay. It was whether or not you should be 30 and over or not. So this conclusion for me is inappropriate. It doesn't conclude your essay. It concludes something totally different. So I would like to see this rephrased to reflect more the development of what you actually wrote in this essay. Okay? So you've got a lot of work to do here to correct these essays. Go ahead and get started on that. Don't forget to add to your error correction list. And let's see what you write for your next set of essays. Good luck.